continuing the account of David and Goliath. If you haven't heard the previous weeks, I encourage you to go back and listen to them. Hopefully that you can be encouraged, you can grow from it, that you can have more boldness, that we can walk in faith, and that we can really do things that other people say are impossible. But you know what? When things are impossible, it's just a really cool opportunity for our God to show off. So this is where we find David. So last week we saw that David said, "I'll fight Goliath." So this week we pick up in 1 Samuel 17 and verse 37. So Saul finally agrees, and he says, "Go, and the Lord be with you." So he's going to send David out. And I want you to see something interesting here. Saul sends David out. Saul already told him, "You can't beat this guy." He says, "You can't beat him." But he still sends him out. How desperate was Saul? How desperate were the Israelites? You know the terms, right? What happens if David goes out and gets beat? Because you know what? Everybody knew he was going to get beat. So David's going to go out, according to them. He's going to get killed. What were the terms? You all become slaves of the Philistines. So it's when people are desperate, they will grasp at anything, and they're grasping at anything. Now, fortunately, they grasped with the one who was following the Lord. So Saul agrees, "You can go." Here's what I want you to see today. So Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over his tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. So I want you to just picture this. So David, we speculate a lot. I mean, it says he's a boy, but that doesn't mean he was like 12. I mean, he was a sturdy, strong man, because we know that he goes on and fights battles real shortly after this. But in any event, he is not a trained soldier. And so here Saul puts him in Saul's armor. Saul was a big guy and a mighty trained warrior. And so he dresses him up, puts the whole thing on, the shield, the helmet, the boots, whatever it would be, tunic, sword. And here's David. I can't even walk. He can't move around. And David says, "I cannot go in these because I'm not used to them." So he took them off. This is such a big issue in every culture, and probably is an issue in your life, and certainly has been an issue in my life and everybody's life. God has a call on your life. Somebody, probably somebody in authority, and others around you will try to dress you for the call God has given you. They're going to try to put on you their clothing, their armor, their tools. And so David had never used this armor, but Saul put it on him. Because why? Because that's the way Saul fought. Man, if I could just get one thing to you today. Be who God called you to be. Don't be like somebody else. Maybe if you want to go into ministry, of course, we learn from so many people, but you know who you're to be like? You're to be you who is growing in the likeness of Christ. You learn from others. You draw from them, but you're not them. Don't be them. You be you. You be who God called you to be for the call he has for you. You got to get that. And because we see so many people trying to use other people's armors. You know, whatever, I was out, and if you had a boy, let's say I had a 7-year-old who loved baseball, and I'm out there with my bat and I'm hitting balls to him, and then he wants to hit. He comes in and picks up my bat. He can't hit with it. Why? He's not used to it. It's too big for him. Doesn't fit. You know what he needs? He needs a smaller bat so he can hit with that smaller bat. I want you to see that David said, "I'm not used to these," so he took them off. Now I want you to see this also. Obviously, he goes and picks up stones. Let me read this. So he says, I cannot go in these because I am not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. So all the armor that was on him, he took it all off. Instead, went down to the stream, grabbed 5 stones and a sling, and then he went after the Philistine. He says something here interesting, because I want you to see this. At that point in his life, David's best weapon was a slingshot. 5 stones, sling, that's all he needed. And that's what he killed Goliath with. We'll get to that next week. But at that point, that's what he used. So I want you to know this. At the point where you are in your life, that's the stuff that you should use to fulfill the call of God in your life. Use that. When you're a teenager, use teenage stuff. When you're in your 20s, use a 20-year-old stuff. Right? As you grow, what happens? Your tools change. You might learn to use these tools, other tools. You should learn how to use other tools because there are better tools out there. But don't try to use the tool that Saul is using when you don't know how to wear them. Use what you have now and be training for other things in the future. Why do I say that? Because at this point, David kills Goliath with a stone. David was a mighty warrior, it says David kills his 10,000s. This guy was the warrior of all warriors. You know what he didn't use in the future? He didn't use a slingshot in the future. What? I thought that was the godly weapon. It was the godly weapon for that moment. It was the weapon that God had him use in that season of his life. But he grew into other things. He says, I can't wear these things because I am not used to them. He didn't say, I'm never using a sword. A sword is an awful thing. Who would ever invent such a weapon? He didn't say that. He says, I'm not used to them. The inference is, I'll learn how to use that. But for right now, I'm going with who I am. And if you had that mentality in life, I will learn how to do whatever. But for right now, this is what I can do. So I will do what I can do now as I'm learning for the next thing that God has in my life. Now, I can remember it like it was yesterday, but years ago, I had a passion to teach the Bible, and it's all I wanted to do. I was 18 years old, 19 years old, and man, I just wanted to teach the Bible. And I knew that, man, God was calling me to speak to thousands, and I wanted to speak all over the world and do all this stuff and preach and teach and all those things. When I was 19 years old, somebody called me up and he said, hey, would you like to teach the Bible? I said, yes. I'm thinking, here we go. I can teach. They said, we're having we have a home group that meets every week, every month or every week or whatever it was. And we have some kids and we wondered if you'd like to teach them while we have a Bible study. And I thought, yeah, baby. So here I go. And so now I'm thinking I'm ready to unload everything. And I get there. It's like 5 girls in 6th grade or something like that. And, they're just fun kids and all that stuff. And I have some really funny memories of that summer and some discussions. They're just funny. They like to talk about bunnies and colors of things. And I just wanted to teach the word. But I'm so thankful that I had enough, I guess you'd say, humility at that time and enough faith at that time to know that this was awesome and that I needed to take this seriously and that I needed to do everything I could to share the goodness of God with these young ladies and to teach the word faithfully to them. And I took it very seriously with that for that summer. And I know this. I know that God takes early days in somebody's life that they don't reject those beginnings, and God says, "Oh, good. Now I can give you the next step. Now I can put you in the next place." And says, I look back over the years and some of the things that I've been able to do, and it's really remarkable. And it's only to God be the glory. It's just all credit to him. But I think back to that, it was like a chicken coop type place that we would meet. And I think back to those days and I think, thank you, God, that you gave me that opportunity, because it was like throwing a little stone in a sling. That's all I knew how to do, just those simple things. And God used that and did some great things, and then he prepared us for the next. So I encourage you today, wherever God has you today, use what he's called you to do today with the skills you have today. Maybe you only know a little bit of the Bible and you want to have a teaching. Teach it. Teach what you know. You don't teach what you don't know. Teach what you know. If you start out in a job, do what you know. Just do that. You'll learn the next. But whatever you know, do it so well that giants fall, and they will fall. Don't wear somebody else's uniforms. Don't be somebody else. You be who you're called to be. Wear what God has for you today. You'll grow into the next. Don't worry about that. But wear what you have today, and God will use it to do really, really remarkable things.